The letter shouldn't have been there. Sealed confidential file for more than many years, imprisoned up in a forgotten storage vault in Quantico. No title, no ceremony, just one call to rank sign with a black mark that has faded cover. Wolf. Of iron, no one knew for years whose name it was, till Summy and Efnally opened it up. And when they did, things changed. Before we start, if you think that respect should be earned, not made fun of, hit like, subscribe, and let us know where you are watching from. When you say Iron Wolf, the air goes, when this narrative is told. The air goes, the room is still frozen, and nothing will never be the same again. The morning the air at Fort Concencade was crisp and chilly, carrying the heavyweight OFOP. This was the place where the futureth people that led the Marine Corps were made. An area where there was no discipline isked for it. It was required. But of Amritsar was at the very end of these instants the kind of silence that wasn't respect. It was judgment. In your late 20s, serene, calm, and a recent transfer from medical division. Her outfit wasclean, and her boots shined to a mirror finish. Beauty. Her stance was excellent, yet no amount of discipline could mask the people were whispering around her. Some cadets smiled as they went by. Some people didn't even try to quiet down. Why is she even here? Probably begged to get in. The doctor didn't belong in training to be a leader. She stood still with her hands behind her back to the wall and her eyes forward. But every time I chuckle, every look, every harsh phrase, she heard them all. Then Lieutenant arrived Chase Harlan, 26. Sure of himself and full of energy with arrogance, polished into him from the start. He walked like someone woothed. Leadership was his due, no turned. He stopped just short of her. His smirks were as keen as a knife. Transfer. What? He replied, his voice loud enough to get a few more people to listen. Sergeant Mercer, she said evenly. Not here. She said as she turned her head. No, Harlan said. You're just here. Another cadet trying to keep up. Cadets behind. Him laughed. One of them said under his breath about medics pretending to act like a soldier. Another person said she probably got in because people felt sorry for her. Ava didn't move, didn't blink, and didn't give us what they wanted, but she didn't say anything. Wasn't weak. Ava Mercer had found out a long time ago that the one who talks the loudest had the least to say in the room. Say by nightfall, the whispers had gotten louder, into light-hearted teasing. In the changing room, Paul leaned against a bench and played back the morning's talk to a lot of people. She corrected me, he said to people who were listening, said. Copying her voice in a Sergeant Mercer, he said in a high-pitched voice, barked, a chuckle, which made Thebinch. I bet she can't even field strip without looking it up. One cadet remarked, I give her a week before she taps out, another person said. Sitting calmly, Ativa took off her boots at the far end, shoulders relaxed. Movements slow and steady. She didn't answer. She didn't stand up for herself, but one of the cadets. I saw something but Corporal Leia Reyes and the rest didn't sharp at an alert. Caught the man Arriva neatly folded her uniform into her locker. A little faded thing fell out as she... Did patch got loose and fell on the Lala? Grabbed it up before anyone else could see it? She looked at it with her eyes locked on, couldn't see it. Her gaze locked on 3 words. Black thread for the sewing. Unweathered gray fabric, Iron Wolf unit. Her breath caught for a time. The name sounded familiar, and I whispered it. Somewhere before, late at night briefing, or a story you heard by accident she was never supposed to hear. Shigaveva took it back without saying a word. A word put it back into Herpet on a jacket. Act. Shut the door and left without looking back. 2 weeks went by us. The humor got sharper. In the morning, there was a military exercise. He spoke louder so that everyone could hear. Be careful out there, Mercer, he said, in a mocking way. I don't want you to get hurt. Those medic hands. Laughter broke out. Ava didn't pay attention to it. As she walked across the field, always did. But Leia, who was observing from a distance, Ava saw something strange. Wasn't paying attention to Heron or the jokes. She was looking at the ridgeline behind obstacle course. eyes narrow-winga. Little. Later that night, long after Riva walked when the drills were over, she walked around the outside by herself. Her boots made a crunching sound. Gently on the dirt walk as Sharon her fingers along the cold steel fencing. She stopped for a moment. Where Theatrice pressed near, eyes focused on a high up on the post, corner camera. Earlier that day it flickered for 1.7 seconds. Very few people would have ever noticed, though. She took out a little worn-out notebook from her pocket hand, wrote something down before they left. That night, while most of the cadets jammed into the mess hall, the plans, there were rows of people. In the hall for a briefing, there were a lot of recruits in the room, and the talk was low and anxious. Lieutenant Harlan sat close by his front with a smile on his face and his legs crossed playing on his lips. Then, just as the lights went out and the overhead projector froze, a faint bell rang out through Thea. New message flashed across the hauled the teacher's console. Limited access login code Wolf01. A silence fell across the room. The teacher scowled and seemed bewildered as he tapped a few keys to override. But the system wouldn't react. Then Ava's table in the desk in front of her shook once. She looked down. One message, no subject, no sender, just for words on the bright screen. Iron Wolf, wait. Her fingers stopped above screen. Her heart raced acro-style. Leia caught. A quick flash-off text. Her eyes got bigger and her lips parted. A little when she realized what was going on expression. Iron Wolf. She didn't know what that meant. Not exactly, but nay, one thing. No matter what this was, Ava Mercer wasn't just another cadet. Someone had just called her back. Hours later, well beyond bedtime. Ava sat quietly on her bunk with her legs crossed. She had her notebook open on her lap, pages full of handwritten. Notice coordinates, times, and patterns. The kind of details that no one else seems to notice, to see. She turned to the newest entry, her pen hanging above the page, drawing the letters she had just written. Wolf01, she closed the authorization active. Quietly, closed the notebook and put it under her pillow, and leaned back into the outside, a bitter. Wind pushed against the wall, against the windows, making the blinds shake gently against the glass. Somewhere deep encrypted servers inside the building dalt, with a request to override and send automatic alerts to systems that are far above Fort Kincaid's degree of clearance. And in a secret operations center, miles away in the middle, a sharply pressed uniformed person leaned over a lighted console as the notice lighted up his screen. Colonel Marcus Hale. He stopped, his jaw stiffening and his fingers gently curling into a fist. The words on his display blinked once and then went dark, into safe encryption. Iron Wolf, it was reactivated by the procedure. For a long he didn't say anything for a time. Then he whispered it softly. He said the name almost to himself, like a promise. That came from the past. Iron Wolf turned on, and with that, he stood up, took his hat, and left. Of the room without thinking. Because when that call sign came back, it meant someone at Fort said one thing. Consincott didn't know who they were, making fun of them. But they were about to find the message had been sent out. The protocols had been set off, and in the still of night, someplace deep down, no one at Fort could see the wheels spinning. Kincaid even knew existed. By dawn, the base felt strange. The air was heavy, more weight. Talks that used to be light-hearted laughter now made people feel uneasy. Inside Thine, the training hall, cadets lined up to get their O's, talking quietly but not sitting still. The event from the night before. Thea peculiar system override. The unusual all anyone said was notification. About. But Lieutenant Chase Harlan didn't appear to care. He leaned back nonchalantly against the podium, flipping through his notes with the calm arrogance of Samayan, who thought the world was all about them. I guess the medic's secrets around him. Out, he yelled loudly enough for the rows, probably. They said with a chuckle, hacked the system on her own. Desperate move for attention. A few cadets nervously chuckled, but no one else did. As effortlessly as before, something in the air felt strange, like they were standing on thin ice that they couldn't yet see breaking. Ava Mercer sat still. Her iPad was near the back of the room, closed, her stance steady. Her face didn't give much away. But Hursley rising and falling of the chest, Leorea sat down and took steady breaths. Looked back at her from 2 rows ahead, and lowered her voice just enough to be Ava. She whispered, What's going on? That message last night. Ava didn't respond. She kept looking straight ahead, without blinking. But Lala saw her hand, stable but holding on fast to Herkney. Before another word could be saudied, the lights in the hall between them flickered once, then again, then they totally died. A quiet murmur of voice made noise. The power outage lasted for just 7 seconds, but when the lights turned back on, when it came back on, things were different. The main display screens lit up with a new notice to override. This one didn't have any code or request for clearance, just one name flashing in bright X'd in white. Call Marcus Hale back.
At first, the sound seemed faint. Footsteps echoing in the hall, and then boots hitting marble. Steady. On purpose, exact. The 2 doors at the end of the hall opened up, and in walked a figure whose presence made everyone quiet. The whole room without saying a word. Colonel Marcus Hale, in his late 40s, is a big man. Shouldered, adorned, his chest displayed. Ribbons in rows, his rank badge. Shining in the harsh light. But the uniform didn't freeze. Everyone is in their position. He was heavy. Borne the kind of weight that only comes from after you've taken men to areas they were not supposed to come back from, and still brought them home. Hill didn't. At first, they didn't talk. He let the quiet stretch, and his eyes slowly moved across the room until it stopped on Ava Mercer. For the first time since getting here, Ava moved in her seat at Fort Concencade. Seat. Nor out of fear, nor out of not surprise, but recognition. Hale stepped forward, his boots making a crisp click against the shiny floor. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and low, but it sounded like thunder. Iron Wolf. Wait a minute. Everyone in the room stopped moving. Harlan sat in the front and blinked once. Not sure what to do. What? Hale turned his head a little and narrowed his eyes. Sergeant Ava Mercer, at the front and center. Ava stood up, not in a hurry or with fear, but with the quiet accuracy of someone who has spent her whole life following commands. Worse than this. She walked down the aisle, boots hitting against the floor in a steady beat until she, standing right in front of him. The colonel's. His voice stayed keen, but his posture softened just a little when he talked. Again. Nice to see you again, Iron Wolf. The room gasped. Cadets looked at one another in confusion. Whispers turning into a gentle roar. Before dying again since Hale was looking at him. Harlan leaned back in his chair while still sitting down. Crossed his arms and sat in his chair. Smirk. This is some kind of show, he said in a low voice. She's just a transfer. Medic. Hale turned suddenly, his eyes staring at him. He told the lieutenant that his voice like iron. Be at ease. You said. That's enough. There was something about Hale's voice that made Harlan's jaw tightened. His pride stopped for the first time since Ava came to Fort Concencade. The colonel let the stillness breathe before you go on. You think you know who you're working with? With? He said, looking around the room. Rows of cadets. You think you. Do you know how important rank and medals are? He shook his head a little and said, steady, yet with a hint of something not said. Maybe pride or memory. You. I have no idea who she is. Not a single person moved. No one was told. Hale 7 years ago. Continued, a secret unit carried out an illegal excavation during the Dawson Ridge incident involved 12 Marines. Stuck. Teams that were supposed to free them failed. They said the mission was a failure. He stopped to allow the words sink in, his eyes never leaving Ava. Then one Operator with the call sign Iron Wolf. Took a 4-person team into hostile territory. There was no air support, no backup, any chance of living. 47 minutes later. Each and every one of those Marines was walking. He took a breath again. She told him to. That team. Everyone was shocked and silent. Like a curtain in the hall. The chairs creaked. As cadets straightened up without thinking. Their chairs, trying to figure out the weight of what they had just heard. Hale didn't just get that call sign. She built it, he muttered, and then he got closer. To Ava, his voice dropping, not secrecy, but respect. And she saved my. Gasps broke out all over the room. Leia Reyes watched with wide eyes, her heart rising and sinking in disbelief. Even Harlan had his mouth half open, as if looking for words. He sunk back into his seat, color draining from his face. Hale turned all the way toward him now, his tone. You made fun of her, he added as he sharpened. Quietly, yet the quiet spoke more than. You called her more powerful than any shout. Weak. Unworthy. Harland tried to find his balance and straighten. A little. I didn't know who she was. He sputtered, that's the point. Lieutenant, Hale remarked, you didn't ask. Hale turned back to the room, his steady, forceful, and ultimate voice. From now on, you will talk to her by her correct name, Sergeant Ava Mercer, Iron Wolf Unit. And if you think this is about rank, he stopped and looked around the room. One final time. You're not ready to be in charge. Marines. Then something strange happened. A solitary cadet sitting near the slowly rose up and came to attention. He gave a beautiful salute by raising his hand. Then another and another. In a matter of seconds, every cadet in the room was on their feet, boots lined up back. Erect, arms up, hundreds of salutes coming together perfectly. For the first time since they got here, Ava Mercer stood in front of Fort Concencade. Them quiet, with an enigmatic look on her face. But she was always there. And in the silence, something changed. She wasn't just a transfer anymore. The foreigner they made fun of, the medic people murmured about her. She was Iron Wolf, and everyone in that room knew. But Colonel Hale wasn't done yet. He went closer to Ava and spoke softly. Enough for her to hear. They know. Now, he added softly, but this isn't about them. Ava's jaw hardened. Then who is it about? Hill's gaze hardened. Someone's watching this. Base, he said. Someone who shouldn't be. Ava's eyes furrowed, and her fingers curled a little at her side. Then she murmured, it starts again. Hill nodded. Welcome back, Iron Wolf, said the salutes had stopped, but the hush stayed. Ava Mercer, the doctor they mocked, the transfer they threw away was Iron Wolf. And even though the cadets thought about how heavy that news was, Colonel Marcus Hale's warning is still, someone's watching, and the words kept coming back to her. This base. That night, it rained much. Fort Concencade was hit hard. Ava sat on the edge of her bunk, her tablet with a code on it, quietly pulsing with the same 4 words. Iron Wolf, stand by. Before she could think about it more, alarms ripped through the building. Breach found. West perimeter. Cadets ran away from their box. Orders were yelled. Sirens roared all around the compound. The plan was in place within minutes. The hall was full with turmoil. Hale stood at the middle, giving orders like, quickly. Fire. Alpha, lock down and seal the gates. Lock up the armory. But a junior. The officer's voice sliced through the noise. Not wobbly and pallid. Sir, they're not. Hale converted into a breach from the outside. What? Internal motion sensors sharply activated. Whoever was inside was already there. The room got frigid. Hale's eyes. South Wing, take Ava right away. Reyes, get out of the way. Ava grabbed her gun and she and Leia Reyes were together in seconds. Gone. Boots thudding against glossy floors as they went down into the dark holes. The hallways were quiet save for the gentle buzz of blinking emergency lights. Then Ava saw it, a vent panel next to the newly disturbed security feed. They've been here, she said quietly. Then there was a gentle, quiet sound, like a scuff of a. Ava raised her weapon behind them. Get out. From the shadows, a figure came out, clad in black fatigues, carrying gear that was not suppressed, given to any Marine unit. He was unsure. For only a minute before lunging. Lulla. Fired. The invader ducked and ran away. The hallway. Ava didn't think twice. She gave chase. The chase tore through twisted hallways till the figure vanished into the lower upkeep wing. Ava followed and came to a stop at the end of the hall. That's when she noticed it. A little gadget stuck against the primary security panel, which was flashing quietly. She pulled it free and turned. She turned it over in her fingers. Not tech from another country. Not random damage. The US military did it. Someone in their own system had allowed this breakthrough. By morning, the alarms stopped ringing. The intruders had disappeared, leaving no one hurt. No stolen gear, only planted gadgets and queries that haven't been answered. This. Ava maintained it wasn't an attack, put the device on the operations table with a sharp clink. They weren't here to destroy anything. Hill's face showed. No, he answered gently. They were testing us. In the other room, the same man, Lieutenant Harlan, made fun of her from the start, stepped up. Reluctantly. He wasn't as arrogant anymore. Changed into something different completely. I didn't know, he said in a hushed voice. Looked at him for a moment, her face impossible to read. She finally spoke. Now you do. As the sun rose over Fort Concencade, Ava stood under the rain-soaked awning, looking out into the foggy horizon. They buried the call sign years ago. Iron Wolf and someone else are alive again. They wanted to see if she had forgotten who she was. They were wrong because Ava Mercer wasn't here to fit in. She wasn't. She wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here to lead. And this time, everyone on the base knew who she really was.